The Nine News podcast is brought to you in association with Season Master and the Window Workshop. All right, everybody, welcome back to the 9 Years podcast. Nick Draper here with the face of the BBC Sport website, Mr. Stuart Deacons. Thank you very much for downloading the show this week. 2 wins to start the season. We're in a good mood. We're going to review both. We're going to have some more serious topics to discuss as well. Dons Trust issues before we look ahead to a return fixture with Bromley. We'll look around all the League 2 action from last week, and my father was John Joe Toolmaker, round 2 as well. But Stu, let's go straight into it. Bromley on Tuesday night, a 2-1 win in the first round of the League Cup. Josh Kelly and Joe Pigott with the goals after we went 1-0 down after about 20 minutes. I thought it was a deserved victory. 2 good goals for different reasons, but we made 6 changes, they made 7 changes. Kind of almost had a bit of a pre-season feel to it. Was it just me?
Yeah, it was a weird one. I didn't... Hey, look, I was watching it on Sky. Obviously, they've got the games, haven't they, now? And it's always difficult to get an understanding of the atmosphere. It didn't sound scary, but then there was only just under 4,000 there. And it's quite obviously quite a lot of open terraces, isn't there? So I think it was probably more a case of, I don't know, it just didn't come across. But it felt like we controlled the game in quite, I looked at possession stats and we were well ahead of them. I think we were 62% possession in the first half. And it felt that way. It felt like we had the ball, we controlled and managed possession and didn't do much with it, to be truthful. But if we were going to take the sting out of any hostile atmosphere, we did that quite comfortably.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. With all the changes, I don't know, it didn't feel like... It seems to be like a little bit of, I don't know, intensity maybe missing a little bit from the game. And I think this is a wider point I'd make about maybe the first round of the League Cup. Even at the end, we clapped our fans off, but players didn't seem overly excited. We didn't really celebrate the goals either, to be honest with you.
No, Josh Kelly didn't celebrate, did he? Really? Joe Pigott looks like it. Well, to be fair, Joe Pigott was just a tap-in after some really good work by James Tilley. No, you're right. We didn't go overboard. I think it's a weird one, isn't it? Because let's be, we know, we discussed this many times over the years that we budget to go out of the cups in the first round and be drawn away. So, any money that we get from getting through to the second round is money we haven't budgeted for. And we got a plum tie, didn't we, last year? So
we certainly played a load of plums.
It's just a weird one. Like I say, the draw is tonight as we're recording it on a Wednesday, and we could get a really good tie, and that money will be beneficial to us. So we got 2 cups. I know obviously the Bristol Street Motors one. I know that's not well liked by anybody, but again, me with my financial hat on for the club, that's money that we can get. So it's we can't really. So yeah, my bigger point. Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't really go mad with it. But puts us in the hat. Everyone's going about they want an away tie and maybe Palace something. I just want a home game. I can't be bothered to travel anymore. I hate going to Premier League grounds, but I'd love to get a big, like a Liverpool or a Tottenham at home. And
I don't think we can get either of those.
Sorry?
I don't think we can get either of those.
Oh, is it still Southern?
I think it's not only. I think it's still regionalised, but also I've assumed, I might be wrong. Spurs and Liverpool.
Oh, of course,
Europe,
the Europe, of course, they get a bit of a buy. So yeah, in terms of maybe like a Palace or West Ham or someone, but I'm still very keen to get those Plough Lane moments and under the lights at Plough Lane. I personally would rather a home game. But yeah, you're right. We didn't go mad, but of course sets us up, as we'll probably discuss later. The second game against Bromley will probably be a bit more feisty.
Yeah, I think we will come on to that later. I think it'll be a completely different game. But just to put it back, the attitude towards these first round games, you're right. There are big financial incentives for clubs at our level in the League Cup. You are one game away, as you say, from playing a Premier League club. I mean, we could end up playing. I mean, we could get Brentford at home, for example, which is a Premier League team, but perhaps doesn't set the pace the Pulse is racing particularly. But generally, just looking around, as you say, you see the highlights on the TV of teams when they win in these rounds, and there's no great celebrations. And obviously, before the games, managers will say their priority is always to win a game of football. And whilst I don't necessarily disagree with that, I also think you read a lot into how managers react and what they do with their lineups and the number of changes even us and Bromley have made. And you kind of go, is your priority really to win? If your priority is genuinely to win that football match, I think you play your strongest team, don't you? And you go all out at it. But it's almost like this, the priority is give a few squad players a chance to get some minutes, and probably the actual overall priority, avoid any injuries.
Yeah, and I think Johnny Jackson did say, didn't he, that we had 9 fixtures in August. That includes sort of Maidenhead and Barnet game. There's still fixtures, but he had 9 fixtures. Of course, we added to that because we bought the Wickham game in the Bristol Street Motors. We brought that forward from September into next Tuesday. So we created that anyway. But I think you're right. I think, don't get injuries. Obviously, I like the loads of games on, and like last night when we've won, I then watched a penalty shootout between Colchester and Reading because you can,
which is what I did as well. Funny enough.
And they didn't really celebrate. And you're right about the celebrations. Yeah. It was like the goalkeeper went to run off and celebrate, and then realised no one else was going with him, and looked a bit sheepish.
Yeah.
That was against a Reading team, and you could argue Reading are not a big scout now, really. Anyway. But yeah, everyone's put, for Bromley to put a weaker team out. But then I think Andy Woodman did say, I think he said something like, we're not going to win the Carabao Cup. So ultimately, it's just about getting through. We haven't got a big squad. And so he was realistic with that. But I thought it was quite symbolic for us because I can't remember us making that many changes for a League Cup game, but also being reasonably strong. That was, let's be fair, you replace Omar Begill and Matty Stevens for Josh Kelly and Joe Pigott. When have we been able to do anything like that? So there was a lot more behind it. But yeah, no one's going to celebrate. But ultimately, I think those teams that got through last night then win a penalty shootout in the next round, then I think it becomes a bit more serious. Do you know what I mean? I think it's like people want to get into the further rounds, but League Cup it's always really early on. You sometimes wonder with all these fixtures so early on. You're right. No one wants to get any injuries, and they're more scared of that.
As you say, we are recording this on Wednesday evening, so Wednesday afternoon. And as it stands, we don't know what awaits us in the next round, but we're all very much looking forward to finding out. But you mentioned this, Stu, the only other big takeaway I take from the win over Bromley, as you say, is the fact that we've got strikers, all of whom have scored in the first games of the season on their first starts. Yep. And yes, we can talk about defensively and we can talk about our defending balls in the box, which seems to be a weakness at the moment. But if you have goals, that will take you a long way. And we've already seen mentions of Kevin Keegan's Newcastle. At this early stage of the season, we will score goals. We maybe concede a few as well. Is that fair, or is that a little bit early to talk in those terms?
No. It's I was just watching back because I'm just doing some editing for next week's show, and I was just looking at your interview you did with Omar and James Ball, and James Ball did say at that point, you want more people getting into the box. That's what they're looking at this season, and you can certainly see that, can't you? In terms of we are getting lots of numbers. Bromley, if you think about it, we had James Tilley and Hussein Byler, and they were playing really, really high up the pitch. And it's creating a lot of wide, if you think the amount of crosses we're getting in is a lot. And there's no point, but we did it last season, put balls in the box and no one's there, so no point. But this year, so far, we're getting a lot of bodies in the box. So, it could be a Newcastle situation, but I think we're going to see more exciting games. Not that they were boring at all at Plough Lane last year, but we've already scored 6 goals in 2 games. I think you're right. The forwards all getting off. I felt it was really important for Joe Pigott and Josh Kelly to get off the mark, if I'm being honest with you. I think if you look at it, they look to be like the second string forwards, if that makes any sense. Even though I think they're both good enough to start. Let's be fair, Joe Pigott and Josh Kelly's goal was really, really good. So even though that not being disrespectful saying they're the second ring, it's more a case that you feel that at the moment Mate Stevens and Abigail are the preferred pairing. But I think we're very lucky to have. I think, let's be fair, no disrespect to Bromley, but I think Bromley would have loved to have Pigott and Josh Kelly up front for them. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah, and Josh Kelly's goal, as you say, this really fantastically well taken goal from Kelly. Everything about it, to be honest with you, the first touch to control, getting away from the defender, and then single-minded straight to the bottom corner. So really, really pleased for him, especially as it took him so long to get off the mark last season when he joined us. And that's always difficult when you come up from non-league because people start asking questions. But I think he's allayed a lot of fears by this point.
But you know what? It doesn't look like he's struggling on confidence, does he? You know how he celebrated that goal, and that's it wasn't arrogance or anything like that. But when I thought about it, I was like, do you know what? He's broken his, he scored early on, which all forwards want to do. But yeah, he wasn't short on confidence. So he's obviously, with his own ability, he's very confident. And let's be fair, do you know what? It's good because Matty Stevens and Omar both scored against Colchester. And now they'll be like, well, okay, the other two now have both scored. So it's that healthy competition, isn't it, that your place isn't guaranteed. So I think that's very good from us. And there's loads of, if you think about the midfield, I think there's lots of competition in that midfield area. It's nice to see. I'm quite happy how the squad's progressing.
Midfield-wise, playing with the three in midfield, the last thing I want to talk about in terms of the Bromley game is we went with Jake Reeves, Miles Hippolyte, and Callum Maycock, and none of them strike me as particularly your more tough tackling, ball-winning centre midfielder, whereas in the past we've sort of come accustomed to at least one of the three being that way, and it seems to be Alistair Smith was picking up that mantle on Saturday.
Yeah.
So it was kind of strange. I thought it was a very attacking three in that midfield on Tuesday night. Did Jake drop a little bit deeper? Was his role to sort of sit in front of the back three more? I was trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. It's difficult to watch on a one-camera shoot on the sky.
I think with Jake, we saw him in periods last year with him and Amine Little that Jake has the ability to control the pace of the game, dictate. There's many times when he'll slow it down and then he'll pay. I think we've got as a captain, I think he's really good at if it's going mad and we're all going 100 miles an hour, he will slow it down and create keep possession. The funny thing you saw about tough tackling, all three of those midfielders got booked against Bromley.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Not for tackling. Well, actually, no, you're right. Jake Reeves got booked for tackling. Hippolyte got booked for a late one. I think we're the only ones that got bookings.
Yeah, we were. Yeah, I'm going to come on to this in a bit, actually, yeah.
But you're right. It's more of an attacking one. I think, again, you can probably... I think if you look at the Colchester team, I think you're probably going, that's probably your favoured starting lineup. There's probably not much you'd change. But, they did enough. What I'm saying is, if you look at it, we replaced Maycock against Ball, and we replaced Hippolyte against Ali Smith. I wouldn't say they were poor replacements. They weren't, I think what we've done before, we've bought in maybe academy products, and we've given them that sort of start. And I think we've gone away from overloading it too much with youth. And we've got, good replacements who can keep competition. But I expect Smith and Ball probably to start against Bromley on Saturday.
Yeah,
and Reeves doesn't get changed. Reeves is the linchpin.
Yeah, you're not going to drop your captain, are you? But no, I expect the team that started on Saturday to be the same ones that start at Hayes Lane on this coming Saturday for the return fixture, as it were. Let's talk very briefly then about Colchester. I think, everyone listening to this podcast will be well versed in everything that happened at Plough Lane on Saturday. We don't need to go over many points of this because it probably has been done several times already. But obviously, 2-0 down after 10 minutes, we've turned it round to win 4-2. What points would I like to make on this one, Stu? Defending the box, we've already touched on it a little bit. So the 2 goals we conceded, and especially in that first half hour, I felt like Colchester did pretty well in that first half hour, in fairness to them. in terms of getting the ball into wide areas, putting balls in the box, and we look nervous. And why do you think that is? When you've got three centre halves who are, even Isaac's not the tallest. Actually, he's not bad in the air. It's like, why do we look like we struggled so much?
I wasn't too sure. I think when you look at Goodman as a goalkeeper, I think one of his areas that he probably needs to develop on is probably aerial and commanding. I don't feel that Goodman wants to come out for crosses. Equally, I don't think he was at fault for either the two goals either, because they weren't anywhere near him. But I feel like there's probably more of a case we've got to defend more balls in the box and stuff like that. Obviously, playing with three centre halves, you shouldn't get overloaded during open play, but obviously during set pieces, that's a bit different. You got good delivery. The first goal I was really disappointed in because there's no way you should get Goodliff free on the back stick, but it sort of gets played on the right hand side. Everyone gets attracted. There's a few runs and Goodliff peels off. It's a good goal. Second goal, I felt it was quite clever from Goodliff because he attached himself to Josh Nerville. We really should have sorted. We had enough time from the free kick to sort that out, and you don't want Goodliff matching up against. I'm sure Nerville wasn't the designated person to pick him up. I think it might have been Omar Begill. Who was that? I'm not too sure. But yeah, hey, look, 2-0 down from two set pieces is a bit of a worry. I didn't feel we looked too worried further on. I think once we got the goal back, I think Colchester, Danny Cowley just got caught up in the moment, stopped doing the things that they were doing well, and didn't defend their box well enough, which is what they seem to do against us quite a lot.
Yeah, this is it. So, Stu, the amount of times we watch games now at this level, and teams that do well against the teams that do the basics very, very well, and one of those is just defending the box. I remember Sutton coming down on Boxing Day last year, and they just defended the box. They made it really, really hard for us.
And Crawley as well, yeah.
Yeah, Crawley, that's a great example. Yeah, Crawley, yeah. And then we played lots of Swindons and Doncasters that would come down Plough Lane, and they would be absolutely woeful. And I think Saturday, because it was the first game of the season, it makes it feel even more ridiculous, the situation being 2-0 down after 10 minutes and then 3-2 up by half time. But I think I just put it down to the fact that, because neither keeper really, if you look back at the game, neither keeper really made a save actually in the game. And it just seemed to be a case of 5-6 goals, but basically down to the fact that neither team could defend their box. Yeah,
and Danny Cowley, I watched Danny Cowley interview, and it was interesting because he said, his teams don't concede 4 goals. He was like, my teams don't do that. But he said there was a lot of things where we just switched off and didn't defend second, third, fourth balls. And he was like you've just said, Dave, you don't do that in League Two, you don't win football matches. I felt our formation was probably, we got so much width from Josh Nerville and Furlong on the other side. And if you look at the goals, they're involved in a hell of a lot of them in the initial phase where, Furlong, to be fair, introduced himself to the new advertising boards behind the Rest and Waste stand.
Hold on, which one's the Rest and Waste stand?
Yeah, it's the safe stand, the south stand, which is the but Josh Nerville put a ball in for the ball with Ali Smith hit the crossbar and stuff like that. So, and I just felt the wide areas we were really, really strong on. And then we flooded the box. Ali Smith, if you think about it, Ali Smith could have had 2 goals. For Jake Reeves' goal, he's the one that shoots and the keeper saves, and Jake Reeves follows up and knocks it into, he doesn't just follow up, let's be fair, he's on the outside of the area, and it's a great finish. And the 4th goal, Ali Smith, after great work by Josh Nerville, hits the crossbar. And then it all... So I think, if you look at formation-wise, a lot of good stuff in wide areas and people getting in around the box. So I think if Colchester can't defend, we're going to score comfortably. You're right, there's going to be better teams than Colchester, even though I think they might be for an outside better playoff opportunity.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against them at all, to be honest with you. I think they've got a lot of good players there. I think once they put it... I was thinking about it, I think their centre-halves are actually good players. We know Ben Goodliff is a good player. Tom Flanagan, I think that's a strong centre-half pair, and I think the goalkeeper they've got is good as well. But yes, I also realise...
Big lad, isn't he?
He is big. He is a big lad. And they've got but they're still a new team and they're still learning each other. Whereas, as we said before, the spine of our team is very much consistent. They've been playing together for a long time now. So there might be some difference there. I think as the season goes on, I would expect Colchester to easily be top half, to be honest with you. They've got a lot of
And let's forget Lyle Taylor wasn't with that. So obviously Lyle Taylor's a big player. Lyle's a big player for them, isn't he? So, obviously he was out on Saturday, which was great news for us because we know he would have certainly caused us some issues. And John Kamani-Gordon obviously returned in a weird one for loan signings because you don't really get enough time to really attach to them. But yeah, they're a decent side, Colchester. Danny Cowley's a good manager. I expect them still to do well, but it's just the league taking shape at the moment, isn't it? You look around what else happened around the league, and you're just trying to work out who's strong. But as much as no one looks at a league table after one game, you tend to look at after 10.
Yeah, come back after 10 games, and we'll see how the land is lying at that point. Danny Cowley did admit afterwards. I watched his post-match interviews. Actually, I watched two of them. One immediately following the game, and then he did a second one in the week previewing their League Cup tie. And you could tell the immediate one after full time, he was still processing what he actually witnessed and trying to make sense of it, because I don't think it was making a lot of sense to him. Like you say, he was almost despondent that his team had conceded 4, and he was trying to figure out exactly why. And I think he'd sort of rationalised it more by the time he did the second interview. And you say that, as you say, it became down to, for me, it just comes down, as you say, to the basics, not defending the balls in the box, losing tackles and making some crazy decisions. John Kamani-Gordon for the 4th goal makes a crazy decision where he tries to play his way out of trouble when he's surrounded by like 3 or 4 of our players in the corner. And that's why at this level you can't be too clever.
Do you know what's interesting is I wouldn't say I'm surprised. I'm not too sure what to make of our squad this season. I think we've got a strong squad. I'm not too sure how good a team is yet. But if you look at everyone else, when they're commenting about us, even Danny Cowley and Andy Woodman and quite a lot of others, they're saying that we've got a really strong team this year. And I'm not going to get too excited about beating Colchester by 4 goals or beating Bromley, but I think, do you know what? I think we have got a decent side. And it's quite flattering how people are saying that we're a strong team, which is good, because Johnny Jackson's in his 3rd season now, so we've kept a good spine of it. We've probably got a couple of additions from what Johnny Jackson's saying. We've got John Joe O'Toole to come back, the caveman. Although he's not a caveman now because he's cut his hair. It looks normal now.
Yeah, he's probably still the oldest member of the squad though, so he gets that tag.
It was funny. Him and James Ball were the last ones to leave in the 1889 lounge. Now it's called.
Okay.
I got there about 7ish after doing the show, and they were both there still having a drink. Bless them. John Joe O'Toole, the most weirdest suspension, isn't it? He obviously got sent off, didn't he? And he served a suspension. Was it Tranmere he got sent off against? Was that right?
Yeah, I think it was Tranmere. Yeah.
So he's now fully done his suspension now. So he comes back into the fray. But yeah, squad wise, I'm really happy where we are. And it will be, like I say, after 10 games, it'll just be interesting where we are.
Bookings. You referenced it earlier. 4 against Bromley, they didn't get any. 5. We've ended up with 5 bookings with against Colchester, and they only got.
Did we really? I didn't check, to be
1.
fair.
Yeah, so Jake Reeves has already got 2. Ryan Johnson's already got 2. Goalkeeper got 1 for time wasting. Callum Maycock got 1 for simulation. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. When we win, and by the end of it, because of the nature of the start, it didn't feel like, I know people are going to think it wasn't quite the way. In the end, the win on Saturday was pretty comfortable. Okay, we were on top for the majority of that game. We saw it out really comfortably. We shouldn't be ending up with 5 bookings, I don't think.
No, bookings are just given out so easy nowadays, though. Like I sort of feel like the 5 and 10 booking thing needs to be sort of extended a little bit now, because bookings are just so easy to pick up. I feel like you should only get a 2-match suspension, only going to get a 1-match suspension after 10 bookings, because I think we're going to achieve that very quickly. Do you know what? I didn't have many complaints against Bromley. I thought it was simulation from Maycock. I don't think there was a foot. Hippolyte was late. Ryan Johnson got booked for trying to, again, the stupid bookings that we shouldn't be getting. He was trying to stand on the ball to make sure.
Yeah.
But then your flip side to that is that at that point Bromley were really getting ahead of steam. So your flip point is actually that might be a smart booking. because actually you don't want them to get too, the tempo high. So sometimes they're sensible bookings to have, but yeah. And let's be fair, John Jones Tour hasn't even started yet, so he's bound to get booked straight away. It feel like he's being left out.
He can kick someone on the 14th of September.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But hey, look, do you know what? I think teams that do well get amongst teams. I can't remember a team getting promoted and being the most being top of the fair play league as well. If I'm being honest with you, so I think teams that are competitive and do well do tend to pick up bookings, but then they also tend to have better squads. So that would be the test of time for us.
Last things about Saturday I wanted to pick up very briefly is the programme. If you remember this time last year, there were concerns the programme would be discontinued because of sales, and we pushed to make sure, and there's no mention of that since, so I assume all is good. I did buy the programme on Saturday. Just a couple of observations, if I may. Johnny Jackson's column, it's got to the point now, and it's not Johnny Jackson. I don't think it's Johnny Jackson's fault, and I think this is a trend across all managers. And yes, they get interviewed a lot now because of social media, and they get plenty of time to get their message across. I just think, I read John Jackson's column and I thought, this is pointless. It's literally just the most cliche, nothing of a statements to make. Back in the day, I know the world has changed, Stu, but I just think we want to get people to read the programme. Do you know what? Have a Johnny Jackson column where he actually gets sitting down, interview him, and get some information out that you're not going to get otherwise. Get some insights that you're not going to get otherwise, because it was just the usual, just not nonsense, but just the cliche stuff like excited for the season, squad's working really hard, fans are fantastic. Oh, come on, give me Joe Kinnear or lambasting like Alex Ferguson back in the days or whatever. Do you know what I mean? That's some personality. We have unfortunately stripped a lot of personality out of footballers actually over the last 20 years.
Yeah, but I think you nailed it early on when you said about the social media. Let's be fair, back in the 90s and stuff like that, we were chatting about this the other day. It was either Club Call or the programme that you got your information from, and it was unique. Whereas now, I would challenge anyone really to get something that's unique in a programme, because ultimately, it's been said, isn't it? If you think about Johnny, we've had the Wimbledon Quarter, we've had the Meet the Manager, he's had so many interviews. I think it's difficult for anyone really to have a unique. I think, hey, look, I'm one of the ones with programs. I think they're dated. I know people hate me from saying that, but I think they are dated. I tend to not read them. If I do read them, I'll probably try and find a feature that is a bit different than the norm, or the chair, Mick Buckley's notes and stuff like that. I'll try to. I don't read it. I didn't read it on Saturday. I saw the picture. I thought the picture was interesting. The front picture with Matty Stevens. Thought that was a bit different. But I'm of the opinion that I think the programme is dated. I'd rather have an electronical video sort of. I don't know. I'd rather have not a PDF style, because I think Salford did a PDF style and they release it free. But I'd rather have some sort of magazine that had video footage that you just signed up electronically. I know it doesn't suit the program collectors and stuff like that, but I give it 5 years. I just don't see a program being anywhere.
I think there's room for both of those. I still think a physical memento of attending a football match is important. I must be honest, if I'd have gone to my first ever football match and not had a program of memento, I'd probably be devastated, to be honest with you. I think if I'd gone to Wembley for the playoff final and didn't have a physical program, went to WrestleMania and didn't have a physical program, I'd feel like I'd be missing something, as sort of a memento of actually having been there. But I think I think the problem is it's a bit of a. It doesn't need to be 80 pages. It's not helped. It's A5 now, which I know is probably for cost measures, but it also makes everything feel a lot quite busy in there. The way it's laid out, lots of colours, lots of stuff crammed in. It's quite overwhelming, actually. When I open it up, I'm a bit like, I don't know where to begin, to be honest. I just kind of really want some interesting insights from the manager, a bit of actual worthwhile information about the opposition team, and I would like a fucking team sheet in a place I can find it. Right, that's my biggest thing. When I'm trying to figure out who the opposition are, and I look at the team sheet of the program. It takes me half an hour to find the team sheet. It's buried away somewhere. Just put it. If you can't put it on the back page because you're advertising, put it on the inside back cover, or just that, or the page next to it. Don't bury it where you can't find it.
Yeah, and do you know what? Hey, look, this isn't a slant on the club because ultimately it needs advertising in there, and feature-wise, we just said, chairman and the manager is a standard, aren't they? Hey, look, I've not been to many away games over the last many years, so I don't know what the programs actually are like elsewhere. I'm guessing they're probably quite similar. So I think it's a very difficult market to sell, and it's not. That's why a lot of clubs have gone away from the program because financially, it's they lose money on it. But yeah, you got me thinking. Obviously, with mementos, I'm thinking when I was younger, my memento was a program and maybe a match ticket.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, I would rather have an electronical ticket because I don't really want the paper one because it just provides waste. So I've got to chuck it in recycling, or I take the wrong ticket, which has happened. But you know what I mean? You're right. You're right. The memento. What is a memento now? WrestleMania. But then I think I've gone to concerts before, and the program's been like £25, and I'm like, I've just paid whatever to get a ticket.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think you're right. It'd be really interesting to see what youngsters want as mementos, because you're right. They are the mementos that we had when we were younger. And as you get old, us now, old farts, I'm a bit like, well, I don't want one now, but actually when I was younger, I did. So, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. And to be fair, the program is really small, so I end up, because my eyesight is just so dodgy now, I ended up taking pictures and then zooming in to read it. But that's my eyesight. No one else seems to have that problem.
It's not all about size, Stu. I'm going to say, but certainly some food for thought there. If anyone listening, perhaps some potential ideas, maybe rethink how we do this whole thing. On to more serious matters, Stu. Dons Trust matters. Broken trust. Some of you might have been handed a leaflet card on Saturday. 5 revolutions. Wow.
Revolutions.
It really is a coup, isn't it? It's resolutions put forward by a group of fans dissatisfied with the way the Dons Trust is being run. Now, I am, after all these years, Stu, we've done DT hustings. We started doing on the podcast years ago. I have now got to the point where I'm a little bit deflated by it all, and these sorts of things just wear me out. If I'm being honest, leaving me a bit cold. This broken trust thing. I mean, broken trust sounds quite dramatic, doesn't it? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it fair? Are we in dire straits? What's going on?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because look, I've said to you many times before, the politics of the club sometimes drains me and impacts my mental health sometimes because it just feels like it's a little bit overpowering sometimes. So I try and not get overly involved. Obviously, I get involved with helping the Dons Trust stream the stuff, and so I have an involvement in that way. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes I find it can get a bit draining and can affect your impact of you enjoying the actual football, which is what we all want to go and see, isn't it? I didn't get handed a leaflet. Obviously, I'm in the ground early, but I saw on one of our WhatsApp groups, someone sent a picture and said there was quite a few of these being handed out, and sent a picture through. I think the thing I saw was broken trust. I've just noticed there's actually some words above it which says help required, but I think because the font and the size of it is just what stands out. It's very out there, isn't it? Broken trust, and I think anyone that's a Dons Trust member, there's quite a few of them at the moment, obviously because they've all become members as part of season ticket holders. I think what the thing is, I think there's a bit of some of the points being conflated. So you've got two issues. You've got an EGM that's been raised, there's a request for an EGM, and that needs 10%.
This is just to clarify. Sorry, emergency general meeting.
An emergency general meeting. So there's been 5 resolutions that have been put forward, and that to be an emergency general meeting needs to have 10% of the Dons Trust members sign, which is electronic at the moment. So it probably needs about 600 signatures because that 10% has gone up because we probably increased our Dons Trust members by about 3,000 people from what I understand. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a high bar. That's quite a high bar to hit. But there seems to be conflation on it because there's something, within the meeting it's going about 50%, so reducing down to 50.01. There seems to be a lot around that for the EGM, but the EGM actually is for the 5 resolutions that don't include that. So It feels like there's a little bit of a broken message on there. The 50.01, hey, look, it's a restricted actions. And for those who are not sure, that needs to have 2 meetings within a month of each other, and both need a required turnout and a set pass. I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, but it needs as you say, it needs 2 votes. Both of which need to have a certain percentage of turnout. I think the second one needs to have a higher turnout, and then both need to have of that turnout a certain percentage voting in favour of it. So it's very difficult.
Yeah, I think the last one we had was back in 2 ticks, wasn't it?
It must have been.
Which, let's be fair, that was going back to Plough Lane, which was a very emotive thing, and there was a lot of promotional stuff and literature and stuff provided for that, and that passed quite comfortably from my memory. But I think, the restricted actions is a little bit along the lines of, I think it's a very difficult one to pass. And I think it's a difficult one to pass because I don't think there's a lot of confidence within the Dons Trust board. That's not all to do with the Dons Trust board members on there. I think it's a lot to do with just generally how it's viewed in terms of the debt we've got, the friendly debt. We've got the bonds to pay in the first quarter of 2025. It looks like a lot of money that we've received from transfers from players has been ring-fenced to pay that first lot of bonds. I think there's a lot of uncertainties with it, and it showed that by that there was no elections for 2023, and people stood, and if they stood, they got onto the board. So I think confidence-wise in the Dons Trust board, it's probably the lowest it's been. But like I say, I don't think that's all to do with the individuals. I think it's to do with a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. And the worry for me, the reason I asked you to discuss it, is the worry for me is that people seem to have a little bit of a not too bothered when I would suggest we're going through one of our most important periods. If we're going to reduce the ownership to 50.01%, and if we're going to do that and it goes through, then we need to know why. If it doesn't go through, we need to know what's the impact, because we've got quite a bit of money to pay over the period. And what I always say to people is what decisions are made on the Dons Trust board can sometimes take 12, 18, 24 months to actually see the impact. And by then, you might be a little bit too late. So I think people need to be interested, but this is probably the most, I can't remember a leaflet campaign like this. Obviously not Plough Lane, because I can't think anything of Plough Lane.
No.
And I just felt it was quite, I wouldn't say aggressive, but it's, hey, look, there's feeling. And, the interesting thing that was on it was, there's 3 things it says on it. It talks about the 75%. It sort of says, we need a level playing field for voting, more accountability to members, and safeguards so we can't lose our stadium. That's quite an why we lose our stadium, because ultimately the stadium isn't secured against any of the bonds, because it's it's basically a bond payment. If we couldn't pay it back, then it'd be more reputational damage than losing our stadium. But I think what was interesting, the next paragraph, the group call for change includes a former Dons Trust board members, a former Dons Trust board chair, and one of our club's 4 founders, as well as several long-standing trust members. So that's quite interesting. That's quite symbolic, isn't it, of who?
Yeah, I mean, with my English teacher head on, Stu, I am very impressed with the persuasive writing on show here. As you say, the emotive language, the potential hyperbole in there, the exaggeration, and a bit of name dropping in there as well. But even though it didn't drop any names, but it adds some authenticity to it and some weight behind it when you start listing off, former Dons Trust chairs and board members and whatever. So very, with my head on that, I'm thinking, no, I'll give you an A for that. But
it's like Strictly Come Dancing, isn't it?
There you go. They can get a 9, but I take your point. It is, but then how many? So what we say? Let's say ballpark figure 6,000 Dons Trust members currently.
Yeah.
How many of those members are number one aware of these sentiments and the push to get an EGM and these resolutions, and 2, of those that are aware of it, how many people are actually really bothered by it? And I think we're talking, to be honest, very, very small numbers. I don't think what helps is And I take your point about the seriousness of things that could be coming down the line, and perhaps much in a more immediate future than perhaps we know or we appreciate. But isn't this always the problem? Things on the pitch are pretty good at the moment. Yes, we got relegated a couple of seasons ago, but that was our first season at Plough Lane with fans in the stadium, so that sort of mitigated the impact a little bit because the club still seems to be travelling in the right direction to a lot of people. You know, you've come home to this big new stadium, 10,000 capacity, whatever, selling tickets really, really well. We start the season, we've got our football side of it sorted now. Craig Cope's done a fantastic job and sorted us that side of things. Kind of feels like back to the days of old Wimbledon at Selhurst Park when you're finishing sixth in the Premier League. The motivation to get involved in these more political issues isn't quite there because the core part of your business, which is what happens on the pitch on Saturday afternoon, is going well. So they're up against it in those terms.
No, I agree with you. And if you're a fan that never knew we were owned by Dons Trust, unless we fail, I've said this before, you could go to Plough Lane and never realise that we were owned by a trust because there's hardly anything around there. I've said that before. But you're right. You could go on a Saturday. You could see us win 4-2 against Colchester. You could see it sold out. The sun's shining. Everything on that match day. I can't think of anything apart from Colchester spoiling a party early on. I can't think of anything that would go to you. This club still needs quite a lot of help, and there's some big decisions to be made up. And I think that's your problem. I've always said Plough Lane being so shiny and new, and that sort of deflects away from the fact that we have £10 million in bonds, not against the stadium, but obviously bond payments to do. And you know what? Football can turn very quickly. Let's be fair, when we got relegated, if you remember, probably from January, February time, it all turned a bit sour. And then everyone started looking at finances, and we also obviously lost Ollie Palmer, didn't we? And we didn't replace them well. And all of a sudden people go, what's happening? Why are we so, So I think it can change really, really quickly from people going, well, what's going on? And if you blink, you miss it. I'm quite privileged in terms of, obviously I do stuff for the club, the stadium tours and that. But I can honestly say that from what you see on a match day, behind the scenes, it's a very lean workforce who do great work with very few people and very restricted finances, because we push every bit of money we can into that first team squad. But when there's issues with tickets and comms and stuff like that, I know it's an easy excuse to make, but I've seen it, and we don't provide the support behind the scenes, and that's where we are. I would happily take some money from our first team squad and put it to get some more people in. Because it's not the people that are the problem; the people are doing a great job. It's the numbers of them. But we don't see that, and that's the problem. So I think we hide a lot of things naturally, but I worry that it could turn really, really quickly. And like I've said before, these decisions that are being made, the bond payments, if we don't pass the 50%, what's the impact for that? If bondholders don't roll over their money, what's the impact of that? We've had to ring fence some money to make sure we can pay that. But then in another 2 years, we've got even bigger payment to make. So money doesn't grow on trees, and we don't have a sugar daddy. Effectively, our sugar daddies are us. We're all sugar daddies in that way. I know you just really made you think.
Is that the new slogan of the club? Is that it? On the Dons Trust badge where it says owners of AFC Wimbledon, right? Whatever way round we put the word in. That's what it is now. We are our own sugar daddies. Oh wow! Take that out of context.
But we've got to be careful. We have to, and you're right. I'm not too sure how many leaflets are handed out on Saturday, but of those 6,000 members, 600 is quite a lot to get to sign it, and they may sign it because of what they've seen. They may not even be bothered. How many real people are engaged? We've increased the numbers of Dons Trust members we have, which sounds great, but I can probably guarantee you that when we have if we have this emergency general meeting, and we have these two meetings in October, November for the restricted actions, I would be gobsmacked if we have any more than 200 in that room in the 1889 now.
Yeah.
I'll be and we normally get about 100 online. I'll be gobsmacked. And that's the issue, when you have so many members, but you have such little real regular interaction, that concerns me. And I think it's, look, I've said I would vote at 50 thing through. I really would. I think we need to sell some equity, and I'll go on record. And I've said it many times. I would quite happily sell out completely, and people will look and go, "You're mad." But I think we've hit our glass ceiling. We can, I think from what I understand, on average in League Two, every club's lost around £2 million in League Two. Can't keep doing that. We don't have 2 million quid as members to keep, and how many Jack Currys do we have, and how many Jack Radonis do we have? That's not a. If you're budgeting to make money from transfers, it's like betting on the lottery and hoping that you might get your winning tickets in a few times. It's not just, it's not. No one would budget with money guaranteed from transfers because the player can get injured as quickly as anything. And it's not to paint a bleak picture. It's just going. We need fans to be engaged and really understand what they're voting for.
The lunacy of football finances, Stu, it drives me insane. We'll come back to this, no doubt, on the podcast in future weeks. Full disclosure, I have signed the online survey to call for the EGM.
So
I will be honest with you, Stu, it's because I was trying to find the resolutions and I didn't navigate through the website properly and ended up signing up for it before I did read it. But having said that, I've got no issue with me. I'm quite happy that I've signed up for it. These resolutions, they seem fine to me. They seem quite logical to me, to be honest with you. So I've got no issue.
Yeah, we haven't discussed the resolutions because ultimately the resolutions, I agree with all of them. But I just wanted to discuss how the 5 resolutions raised have been a bit conflated with the 10%, and there's a little bit of a
with the 50%.
I think the resolutions. I don't think the resolutions are the big thing.
No,
I think the EGM is more about getting people energy, discussing things. That's how I see it.
You'll have to search on social media, anyone that's not seen it yet. To be honest with you, I can't point you to a particular website or link to find this, I'm not afraid. But the survey does end on a nice rule of 3. We're going in with our English persuasive writing terms. Sign today, call the AGM, support the rebuild. You're almost your rule of 3 there with your short sentences for effect as well, maybe even in there a little bit. But Stu, we've not done this for a while. We are running late.
I know, but sounding great. I do apologise. I've gone on my rant, but yes.
No, don't apologise. Never apologise. But we are going to fly through the remainder of the show. First of all, my father was a John Joe O'Toole maker. Which former AFC Wimbledon, well, I've given you a hint there, so it's in the last 22 years at least, player is this? We're going to start off with the cryptic clue for all you Times crossword fans out there. Sits in hospital abode in Ric Flair attire.
And sorry, is this a person that's played for Bromley and Wimbledon?
Yeah.
Oh, so, that narrows it down a bit then, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's not many, to be fair, but sits in hospital abode in Ric Flair attire.
I can't even think if actually played for Bromley. George, sometimes I really should do some research beforehand, but I don't. Who's played for Bromley and Nick McDonald?
It's good, but it's not right, okay? But I will one day, when we have more time, ask you to make the link from that cryptic clue to Nick McDonald. Number 2, he scored the winning goal in our first home game back in the 3rd tier. So after we got promoted, playoff final at Wembley, beating Plymouth, our first home game the following season in the 3rd tier, he scored the winning goal.
I'd love to know who it was against. Christian Jolly. I have no idea if he played with Bromley.
Okay, again, it's good. Christian Jolly, I'm not sure.
He might have travelled through Bromley at one point. That's a connection.
Man, possibly. Okay, finally, he officially retired from football at the end of the 2022-23 season. Finished his career playing for Chelmsford City.
It wouldn't be Liam Trotter.
There we go. Look at that. You've got it. That's the first one you've got. Well done. I'm impressed. Round of applause.
Right.
There you go.
Only because I've always kept an interest of where Liam Trotter's gone, just in case he comes in near us.
Well, yes, and there's a few points I'd like to make about this, Stu. It does say here, officially retired from football at the end of... officially retired in 2023, but unofficially he retired in 2013. He certainly wasn't playing football for us at any point. And the second question is a bit of a trick question because he was playing for Bolton. So he scored the winning goal for Bolton at Kings Meadow. They beat us 2-1 in our first home game back in the 3rd tier, League One as it's known at the time. Cryptic clue, sits in hospital abode Well, what people who are in hospital, what do they sit in? They're in their beds. Their beds are in what? What do you call those rooms?
A cubicle.
Kind of. No, when you have like 6 beds in a room, they call that a hospital.
A ward.
Ward, right? Ric Flair was known for what sort of attire? What did he wear? Like boxers wear them to the ring.
He wore. I don't know what he wore actually, Ric Flair. I remember his voice more than what I remember
It's like
what
a
he
dressing
wore.
gown but posher.
Like a gold thing, wasn't it? I say it.
What's a dressing gown but posher?
A robe.
So there we have it, Stu. Ward, robe. No more questions, Your Honour.
You spent too much time on this one.
I wish that was true, Stu, but I'd spent no more than 2 minutes on this, which, to be honest with you, is about the length of time I survived most things. League Two, very quickly, just some highlights of the first round of fixtures over the week, actually. A couple of things I wanted to point out. Good win for Bromley, as we know, at Harrogate on the opening day in their first game in the Football League. Doncaster have had a good week, 2 wins. Thumped Accrington on Saturday 4-1. Shout out to Notts County, who we expect to be better this season, especially defensively, and they kept a clean sheet with Alex Bass in goal. So that was worth noting. Tranmere also good draw with Notts County at home, and then they won the Cup 3-0 in the week. Accrington, terrible start to the season. Defeats to 2 League Two teams in League and Cup, conceding 7 goals. And Stu, can you name me another team in League Two that in their 2 competitive games so far this season have conceded 7 goals? Who could it possibly be? Which team?
Well, I know it was because I actually was amazed that you gave the team that scored 5 against them on Tuesday night some.
Always liked Watford.
You were nice.
Always liked them. Good club that. Yeah, proper club that one. I mean, there'll be shit asses again on Saturday, and I hate them. But for one night only, fair play.
Joe, there's a club employee. I won't name who that person is, but they are a Watford fan.
Get them out.
Their Twitter on Tuesday night had a saying that we sometimes use against a franchise. I'll leave it at that. But they seem to enjoy that win. It's a shame. It's a shame, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Who would losing against Bradford and then losing against Watford? I have no idea who they've got next. To be truthful, I don't really care.
I do actually, because I looked up Colchester away, funnily enough.
Yeah, I've just seen that.
So come on, Lyle. Stick for Saturday, Lyle. Come on. Pick of the fixtures this Saturday, by the way, Stu. Not a particularly interesting set of games, but I've gone for Port Vale Tranmere because Port Vale started with a good win at Salford. Tranmere, I think will surprise a few people this season. So that's the game I'm most interested in. I don't really see anything else particularly interested in.
Do you know what? I see Carlisle Barrow because that's basically Scotland derby. It's so far up north. But Carlisle obviously lost 4-1 against Gillingham. And I think Carlisle will be strong this year. And Barrow beat at home. They beat Crewe at home. And I thought Barrow. Hey, look, if Barrow for the last 2 seasons, in my opinion, have overachieved. I'm just curious to see how they would do in that 3rd season under Stephen Clements as well, who didn't have a great time at Gillingham. So, yeah, I'm looking at the Scottish derby as being my game that I'm going to look at.
The Scottish derby. I'm just quickly spotting, like, it's if you wanted to drive from Barrow to like Scotland, it would take you a good 3 hours. So, you know.
Yeah, but it's north, isn't
it? Maybe not 3
hours. That's only because they put the ground in a really. That's only because they put the ground in a really weird place where you've got to sort of go up and then turn left.
Yeah,
quite a big turn of left. But it's only because they put like them and Workington. They must have just like thought we're just going to put football teams here for a laugh because no one's going to want to come here.
Yeah, they put one. Talk about places where they put football teams where no one wants them. I can think of one.
Do you remember years ago we played Workington in the FA Trophy, and at one point we were 2-2, and we were both going, "Oh, do you know what? That would be a proper badge of honour to do that midweek." And then they scored, and actually it was a good job they scored because let's be fair, we would have gone, and we probably would have never got back for years.
No, very well. No, we'd never would have ever heard of us ever again. This podcast would never have been a thing. We were running really, really late. So Saturday, Bromley. As we know, last season promoted. Interesting. Sam Long is their goalkeeper. I thought it was a good signing from Lincoln City. He played on Tuesday night. Did not play in that opening game of the season, which I thought was interesting. Omar Sawunmi also came in. Our win on Tuesday night was only our second ever win at Hayes Lane away at Bromley as AFC Wimbledon, which was of note. Hayes Lane is a horrible place to go. We're not going to revisit memories of losing our long unbeaten run to Cray Wanderers there, or the famous Ryan Hall incident, the famous Cohen Hall
Wes
incident,
Daly.
the Wes Daly sending off playoff semi-final, Nick McDonald with the winning goal that day, if we remember correctly. So let's not think back all those beautiful memories. Let's just say, Stu, my law of averages is you don't win 2 games in a row against the same opposition in a week. I'm happy to relax that a little bit due to the number of changes in the respective teams on Tuesday, but I still think we'll probably end up with a hard-fought 0-0 draw.
I don't think it'll be 0-0 because I don't think they can get clean sheets, and neither can we. I think a win.
Stu, hold on. They literally kept a clean sheet in their only league game this season.
That was Harrogate, who I think would be down the bottom.
Okay.
If you saw their defending, they would definitely be down the bottom. Yeah, and you know what? I don't feel like we did play each other on Tuesday night because, as you said, they're such different teams. So, I don't think we'll lose. I'll take a draw. But it wouldn't surprise me if we win the game. And I think with some goals from our front too, which would be Omar and Matty Stevens. Who, by the way, my wife made it really interesting. My wife was watching the highlights and she went, "Why are we signing someone who thinks he lives in the 80s?" In Matty Stevens. Some boy band.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
But I think he's got a lovely head of hair. And he's been, in terms of, we lost Josh Davison, who had a lovely head of hair, and we replaced him with a lovely head of hair.
Well, that was the best 20 seconds we've ever done on the podcast. I'm gonna play that audio every week on the show. Every week, Stu, we will repeat that because that was podcast gold. But well, thank you very much, Stu, for joining me this week. We've gone very long. We said we wouldn't, but we have. Never mind. It's not about length, of course.
No, thank you.
It's what you do with it. But yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Updates from the game with Bromley will be on Twitter at 9Wild Podcast. Remember, it is another game that is on Sky, so it's at a 12:30 kickoff again. So good luck with that, everyone. Aside from that, I think that's it. Is there something I've forgotten? No. Well, thank you very much for everyone for listening. I'll sign off. Alexa Bliss, bag first, milk last. 2 + 2 = 4. Josh Davidson and Matty Stevens have lovely heads of hair. And we shall speak to you again, next Wednesday or Thursday.